this evening. He is with the Independent Sasquatch Research Team, established in the year 2000, right, David?
That is correct.
And you guys are there in Central Florida, which puts you in a good spot probably to go out to all of kind of the Florida hotspots, right?
It is, yes. Actually, when I started this team, I was actually up a little bit further north of Ocala, and Ocala used to be my stomping grounds. Well, still is, but it's a little bit further away from where I am now. But that's where it started. But I'm here in Central Florida now, just outside of Tampa and outside of Orlando.
Yeah, that's a good spot down there if you're into Sasquatch, right?
Oh yeah, because we can hit all the spots centrally and just everywhere. We can cover the whole state.
Not to put you right on the spot as we jump into this, but I was going to save this for the end. But now that we're talking about different locations, what do you think about that famous or infamous photo of the Mayaka Bigfoot photo? Do you think that that's actually one of the escaped monkeys or orangutans or some such thing?
I don't think it is a Sasquatch or a Skunk Ape, only because I'm not sure if you know who Diane Stocking is. She actually did somewhat of an extensive research on that, and actually spoke to the police department that the infamous letter was sent to, and they determined that or she determined that it was leaning more towards a hoax, because no one was coming forward to say that this is who I was or who the person was that sent it. More so of a, hey, let's pull a prank and see how long we can get away with it, because the little old lady, so to speak, never came forward and said that she was the person that did that. So, and after all those years of not coming forward, or maybe even her relatives, because people talk about what they've seen, and none of her relatives ever came forward and said, yeah, that was my grandma that came by and said she saw this thing in my backyard. So none of those folks ever stepped forward and said, yeah, this story is true. So, so it kind of goes on to that back burner of, it could be a hoax, and, more likely, that's what it was. So otherwise, you really can't put too much stock into that photo. Yeah,
that one still, sometimes I'll see it pop up. Right, in the news feed.
Yeah.
Oh boy, here's this one again.
Exactly, and that, and among other photos that you see floating around there.
Yeah. You're like, guys, not this again. Come on, let it go.
Like, oh my God, this thing keeps dredging up again. So
they're like just zombies from the grave. They just will not go away. The undead photos.
The undead, yes. They keep appearing.
Yeah, they certainly do. And I'm sure that will keep continuing, at least for us on our research side. So, as far as, what year was that when the new laws were passed about exotic animals, and then everyone that was holding anything exotic, including monkeys, apes, orangutans, were just let go in the wilds of Florida? What year was that? I don't even remember.
Oh gosh, I want to say it was, I'm not sure exactly of the date, was it the
70s or the 80s? I don't remember, late 70s maybe?
I think it was the late 70s. I think that rings a bell, but they obviously don't do that nowadays, because, that's, would make everybody pull their hair out and like, what's this in my backyard?
Yeah, so how much do you guys think that whatever might be going on right now could be attributed to some of these things that were in fact let go and have, made their way and had children and children's children of their own, of their species?
As far as the,
just anything you might come across, or reports that you come across, yeah.
I'll tell you, the alligators in the state of Florida rule the roost. So if there is any primate other than Sasquatch floating around out there, moving around, these alligators, these things, they can reach 13 to 15 feet long, and they're huge, and they could be anywhere between 3 to 4 feet wide. And if any kind of small primate is running around out in the woods close to any kind of water, which they will be, they have to look out for these big gators that we have down here. So if anything that was kept in the zoo for any long length of time and then let go or escaped probably wouldn't survive less than a year out there if they're lucky. So I don't put a lot of faith into that. There are some small monkeys still living in and around the Ocala area, only because they're probably more agile and can get away from these alligators a lot faster than alligators can move. But that's probably about it. Anything else would get eaten up. Even these pythons down here.
Yeah. No, you hear that get brought up a lot. Oh, well, they let monkeys go. But that was, first of all, it was a very long time ago, and they would have had to do a very good job at having a breeding population, right? And unfortunately, I usually think of it's such a tragic story of the father that was at, Disneyland?
At Disney?
Yeah, with his 2 or 3-year-old son, and look how fast that happened. I mean, surely he tried to be quicker than the gator, and he wasn't. So
yeah, that's some real sad news, because we're only about 40 minutes from Disney, and of course we've been there lots of times. But when you come into Florida, it should be a given that, and even if you go out to Louisiana, it should be a given that there's alligators and snakes and everything else out there, and these things can take your life in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
As that was proven, with their son, and but it was kind of a twofold issue there. The parents probably weren't watching the child close enough, or and of course Disney, they probably should have stepped up a little more surveillance on the alligators out there, because alligators don't care where water is, that they're going to go to it, no matter if it's Disney or a pond 20 miles away from Disney. That's just a given. So they beefed up actually around their whole lakes now. They have a 3-foot fence around the lake, so no kids can go over it, and no alligators can come at you. But that's not going to stop this. That's not going to stop the snakes, though. But
the snakes get
gotta be careful
really
of those.
Big there. Yeah, Indiana Jones would not be a fan of Florida. That's for sure.
Exactly.
So, David, what got you into researching skunk apes?
Oh gosh, it goes back to when I was 7 years old. My parents moved down from Connecticut when I was 2. So Florida is pretty much all I know. So when we grew up in Florida, not much to do where we lived. We were living in a little North Florida area, and it was a small town, and me and my brother used to go out in the woods and play a lot, and run the woods and have a good time and check out stuff and explore. And we used to also watch, kind of the strange and unusual thing. I think my parents didn't like us watching that kind of stuff, because it was to them it was kind of weird. But we would watch In Search Of, and of course we saw the Patterson film on there, and when I saw the Patterson film, I was like, man, that would be cool if something like that really did exist out there in the woods, because we're running around out in the woods like kids, all the time. And of course, we never saw anything like that or had any kind of experiences, but that kind of stuck in my mind at that age. And then, as you get older, kids, you forget this, that, and the other. And it wasn't until 1995 when I was getting into the computer field, and I was playing around on the computer, searching the internet as it was back then, and I did a search on Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and I found all kinds of stuff out there on the subject. So I found, of course, the BFRO website, which was probably the only one out there that had a listing of all these sightings that was happening across the country. So I would stay up wee hours of the morning just reading report after report in different areas. I think I didn't add them all up, but it probably came to, a couple thousand reports that I read. And in that process, I started picking up patterns of these creatures. And I said, they're doing the same thing in this part of the country as they do in this part of the country. And so it's a pattern that they do. So I started picking up those things, and I started getting more interested into the fact that, hey, I need to get myself, my boots on the ground, get out in the woods and start putting this knowledge to work. So I joined the BFRO for probably a little, like a year and a half, maybe a year and 3/4. I got out of that for many differences, probably same difference other people have, but regardless of that, I still wanted to do the research. So I did. I started doing the research and doing it on my own. I was going out there in these areas where known Sasquatch activity was going on here in Florida. And so I started putting that knowledge to work for my benefit. And then I said, it's kind of lonely doing this by yourself.
Yeah.
And so that's when in 2000 I put together the Independent Sasquatch Research Team, even though I was the only one. But then I started getting some emails from other folks saying, hey, you mind if I join and to your team? And I'm like, sure. How I started, would drill the people as far as, how interested are you in this? And, I wanted to have people on the team that were, how am I going to say this, that put the research first, and, they're not in it for money or fame and that sort of thing. Because frankly, this research doesn't have time for that, because we need the answers to the many questions that are out there. So, as the years rolled by, we started getting more and more people, wanting to join the team because, hey, we like what you're doing. We want to join. There were some other folks that were with other groups as well that, for whatever reason, didn't like how they were doing things, and they saw my team, and I said, hey, we're straight shooters. We're in it for the real reasons, and we're not out here to make a mockery of it. So we got right now, as it stands, we have about 20 members on our team. And there's a core group of us that are out there doing it all the time. So, and then there's, the other folks on there that you're able to do it when they can, so to speak. So we got a nice little group even though I've been doing this over 20 years, but, it's a nice small group, but, they're all dedicated and they're all on the level as far as, the reasons that we need to be on the field doing this type of research.
Yeah, David, I saw on your website, and you have a sighting hotline number, which of course we will give out in the end here. But you guys get a call, and I saw that you return the call within 24 hours to the witness or witnesses. And I'm assuming you try to get out to the location probably as quick as possible. What is you guys' protocol in the field? Is that something that you try to keep it very uniformed as far as what everyone is doing?
Yeah, we try to follow a protocol of we want to determine if the person on the other line is telling us the truth first. We have to first and foremost decipher that. And So we have to call that person, listen to their report, and as far as I do it, I would ask them specific questions on their encounter, and then let them go on with the whole story. And then I would ask them other questions to bring them back to what they've told me already. And you kind of decipher through that if they are telling the truth or they're lying. If their story changes, quite a lot, then there's something up, or they don't even call us back sometimes. And I'm like, okay, well, I called this guy like three or four times and they're not returning my calls. Either they're scared and they don't want their name or anything. They're chicken. They just want to run the other way and forget about it and don't want to get their name out there or something like that. Or it was an obvious hoax.
Do you get that a lot, David, where people will just not even answer the call back?
I've gotten that a few times. And at that point, if I call like 3 or 4 times, they don't return my call after I leave messages with them, I just drop it because, it's obviously, it's one thing or the other. They don't want to they don't want to pursue this any further, or it was just a joke or a blatant hoax or whatever, and they just want to get a laugh at it. So, you got to look at it that way, and you can't take it personally because, a lot of people out there want to hoax stuff or fake stuff or just make a joke of everything. So, and then you just go on with life, but that's only happened a few times, to me. I'll interview them or speak to them over the phone, and then I'll try to meet them in person. And that's the next step is, can I meet you in person? Let's go try to get there to the exact location and show me exactly where this happened. And that's the next step. So if they can't do that for me, say, well, no, I can't do that. And they start backpedaling on that. Then I start leaning again over to, okay, well, this must be a joke or a hoax because this guy or this person obviously doesn't want to go out to that location, or they're too frightened to go out to that. So there's a lot of things you have to take in when you interview folks, because it could mean that they are just scared, they don't want to go in that area, and or they don't want to relive the whole process over again because they're having nightmares because of this thing they just saw. So you have to, it's harder over the phone. It's good to get them out and say, hey, listen, let's just meet somewhere, at a restaurant or something, and let's just talk about it. And that kind of breaks the ice, Then we try to get them out to the location and say, hey, listen, I'll bring a couple of guys with me on our team, and we'll go out to that location. That way you're not alone. I got other people with me on the team that will be with you. So, everything's cool. So we try to do that way as well.
Now, how many times have you guys gone out to a location and you've actually found corroborating evidence to their story, whether it be a track or maybe a break if you guys are into tree breaks much, or whatever it might be?
We're into anything that maybe any types of evidence that would lead to Sasquatch evidence. Of course, the best evidence is seeing a Sasquatch actually doing the event, but we're dealing with after the fact now because it's a sighting that happened previously to somebody. But we scanned the area, we canvassed the area really good in areas of sightings, looking for sign, looking for tree breaks, looking for tracks, anything that would relate to what these Sasquatches leave behind. Now, not everything's Bigfoot, and I try to tell that to people. Some people say, well, there's a bow in this tree over here. And I said, well, go over and examine it. Let's go look at it. And, you have to examine the evidence too. You can't say everything's Bigfoot because, that'll be ludicrous. There's, you got human traffic in there. You got people, depending on where it's at, you got a lot of human activity going on. So you can't rule out that it's just a Sasquatch doing this. It could be kids playing around. It could be a survival class out there building stuff. They could be building shelters out there. How do you decipher a human building a shelter from a Sasquatch building a shelter? And that's all part of the training that we do with new members that we have. We put them through a training process, or especially out in the field, of showing what is natural or what it could be, human activity as opposed to Sasquatch activity.
I really love Florida because you can be driving next to a little mini strip mall and restaurants and everything else, and then you drive another 2 blocks down the road and, there's maybe a little preserve of some sort, or it's all of a sudden it could be even a little park of, full of woods, and who knows what's in there. I absolutely love Florida. It's one of my favorite places. So I'm sure that you guys are in proximity to plenty of quote unquote training spaces, right?
Oh yeah, we have a lot of places. Where I live now, I'm probably about less than 30 minutes from an area where lots of sightings have happened, and for the most part, these sightings are coming from hunters in the area that during hunting season, and these things are in those areas during hunting season. You wouldn't think that they'd run off like the deer do, but they don't. They equate that, hunters come in. That means, oh, great, free food. We don't have to chase it.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of hunters have reported, the Sasquatch activity up in like 30 minutes north of where I live. And, which makes it nice for me because, it doesn't take me long to get out there. But also north of that is Ocala, and south of us is Mayaca, and even further south is the Everglades. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
we have a nice big corridor of wooded area there that these things can travel back and forth to if need be.
And you've heard me joking before about those poor Florida Bigfoot, the Skunk Ape, just sweating their bags off just every day, most of the year. Just, it's so humid there. I mean, the first trip to Florida was in August, and I was shocked at how just hot it was. And I'm from, Nevada. And I'm sorry, folks, but there is a little difference in the, in the dry heat. I know that it's such a cliche to say, but it's a huge difference. But I will say this though. They might have the humidity and the heat, and yeah, they might have to get in that murky water. Not that they really care about that probably, but they have it's a full on like the Rio buffet for them there. They have an incredible amount of food source and water source there in Florida.
Oh yeah, they most definitely do. One of the reports I got from a guy, him and his family from Michigan, actually, they called me up and said, "Hey, we were down in Florida, and we were out over by Cedar Key, and they were driving back towards Gainesville, Florida, and as on their travels there, they were traveling on 27, and it's a 4-lane road, but in the middle there's a median there with woods, and woods on both sides of the highway. And they were I think they were in a van or something like that, but there was him and 3 others in the van with him. And 100 yards up in front of their van, this guy sees this thing come out of the wood line and cross over their lanes of traffic and into the median, and where it's wooded there still, and it was gone. I mean, just, he said it crossed that road like nothing he's ever seen before. Mm. And he goes, you know what the strange part is? And I asked him, so what's the strangest part other than that? He goes, well, it was the middle of the summer, and it looked like it was carrying an infant one with it.
Oh. Wow. Well,
so,
yeah, so
I think they can adapt to the heat down here and the humidity and all the other pains that come with it.
Yeah, can you imagine how much they get bit and stung, and just they must be There's some anti-venom they have, right? Like
they're
all
a
the
lot
snakes.
better. They're a lot better than I am out there in the middle of the night.
God.
With
Oh my
mosquitoes.
God. I was just going to say, the mosquitoes alone, I like to watch the show Naked and Afraid. And I think that the worst part of that show is watching them just get eaten by bugs every day, every night. And they're covered in welts. I'm like, I think the bugs would be the thing that makes you tap out. At least for me.
For me too, I think, because I was like, oh my God, how can they stand that? I was like, I can stand anything else, but the mosquitoes is just out of this world, because that would just drive me nuts.
Yeah, talk about degrading your mental state really, really rapidly.
Exactly.
So, David,
I'm sorry. I was going to say there was an episode of Naked and Afraid that you brought up, and it was actually in Louisiana, and there was an episode there. I'm actually going to try to tie that into my presentation that I'm working on. And you can actually hear this thing making a noise out there. Mm. And at the time, it was just this one guy, because the girl that he was with, after day 3, she was done with it. She tapped out and went home.
Oh, was this the one the second try? Is that her? Was it her second try, right?
I'm not quite sure. I think they brought in another girl for this guy.
Oh, okay. Because
it was the other one. She didn't stay very long. Yeah. So they brought this other girl and didn't tell him, but she just shows up and he goes, "Hey, oh great!" And then they're sitting there at night, and of course he doesn't appear that he's told her about this noise that he's been hearing, and she hears it and she goes, "What's that?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, you're going to hear some stuff out here." And
so does the camera pick it up at all?
Oh yeah, it picks it up.
What does it sound like?
It sounds like a loud yell or a moan, and like it's not that far. But then as their nights continue, they're sitting around their little hut and their little fire, and all of a sudden they hear this thing, these twigs breaking, and something's walking like on 2 feet around their camp. And he goes, "Oh God, there's something over there. It's walking on," and they're freaking out.
Oh boy.
And I was like, "Man, that's awesome." I said, "You probably just had a Sasquatch come into your area."
Man, I think I've seen most of those. I think I remember that one. Is that the one it's a lot of water they're in, basically a Louisiana swamp, and they're up on one of the hammocks a lot of the time, like they're camped on a hammock or something?
Yeah, I think so. They had a little area that washed out, and they had to actually move from that area to another area.
That show cracked me up, man. Some of those people, like the guy that ate the mushroom, and you're like, you don't eat the mushroom if you don't know what it is. What are you doing? We'll have to look at that one, huh? Louisiana episode. Very cool. So, David, you said you were going to be giving a talk. Where are you going to be speaking?
Well, actually, I'm just, I'm not speaking anywhere yet, but, I'm just preparing a, presentation up, because at some point, we're kicking around the idea of having a conference here in Florida. And I want to model it after, some of the other conferences out there, that are doing good, like at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference and that. So we're kind of kicking that around. But I'm just, kicking the idea around of putting a presentation together, because, a lot of people want to know what's going on in Florida. We don't hear a whole lot coming out of Florida. So I'm trying to get things together as far as that goes. And, at least for our team, what's going on, what we're finding, and all that. So,
very cool.
We're trying to get the wheels rolling on that.
Yeah, let me know if you need any help. I'll be happy to shout from the rooftops if you guys get something rolling, get some people over there. That'd be incredible. I mean, it's Florida, it's Skunk Apes. You got to have something, right?
You got to have something. Yeah, you got to bring something to the table. What you've been working on over all these years.
Oh no, I just meant like Florida. They need something big in Florida. Like the OBC obviously is usually one of the top ones that comes to mind, but Florida needs like a really massive one, I think, like the OBC. I completely agree.
And what better place to have it here in the state of Florida? You're surrounded by ocean, and
absolutely.
and Disney, of course. But
there's a lot of beautiful spots there in Florida. And I always love just you come home and there's just like geckos all over your house, and there's like baby gators in the canal behind the house. It's one, I love Florida.
Frogs,
I cannot say enough. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the little tree frogs, the perfect little, they look so fake, the little green tree frogs, right? They look like they're plastic.
They do. And they're all over the place.
Oh man, they're like, it's like a frog infestation. It's incredible. Except for those darn sinkholes, right? Florida's pretty damn cool. And the
yeah, I think everybody would safely say that that's a scary thing.
Yeah, truly.
No matter where you live at, even if it's a mudslide, in California, or if it's a sinkhole in Florida, or a hurricane, no matter where you go, you're going to have some kind of issue with weather and everything else. So, sinkholes are scary because it's like basically taking the rug out from under you, and it happens that fast.
Yeah, I was watching something on the Weather Channel, and it just happened to be about Florida, and of course the sinkholes came up, and some poor guy had happened to be living with or did he live like 2 doors down? Maybe he lived two doors down from his brother, and the exact part of the house that went underneath, like 200 feet into the ground, was his brother's bedroom, and he heard it happen, because I'm sure it's very loud when the earth gives way. And I guess the poor guy, he climbed down the hole trying to find his brother, but it didn't happen, and the guy passed.
He was so far down. There's no safe way to try to rescue anybody, because you just don't know if it's going to collapse even more, and there you go, as well. Yeah, it's a horrible thing. But unfortunately it's happening more and more because of the aquifer here in Florida, and there's so many people here, and when you take that away from the natural aquifer, bad things happen. That's the nature of the beast here in Florida. Everyone wants to be here, but it hurts the environment somehow or another.
Yeah, you guys that have been there a long time are like, you can stay where you are. You don't need to come to our state because it's getting worse.
I cannot stand the heat down here, but it's brutal. It really I think it's gotten worse, but anyhow, we deal with it. If the Sasquatch can deal with it, so can I. Sorta.
Yeah, and they're just covered in mounds and mounds of hair, right?
I don't know how they put up with it. If I ever sat down with one down here and spoke to him, I was like, the first thing I'm going to ask him is, how the heck do you put up with the mosquitoes down here? And that'll be my question.
I'd be like, do you want me to shave that all off for you? I can help you out for a month or two. Just shave that right off. Yeah, those poor things. Like, no wonder. People have said the Bishopville lizard man maybe was just an algae covered Sasquatch, which is could very well be. Right? If I was in Florida, I'd be in the water all the damn time. Maybe enough to get algae to cover me, so.
Exactly. That's the coolest place to be at, is in the water.
With the gators and all, dude. Like, if you're that big, though, you're like, you're not gonna mess with me, buddy, so.
Exactly. I think they have them outnumbered.
Yeah. They probably have some sort of a contractual agreement there between the SAS and the gators. I don't care how big the gator is. They're not going to be messing with those big boys.
I agree 100%.
So I know that you've been very close to what you thought was a Sasquatch. You said in between 70 and 100 yards. Is that your one time that you were like really pumped up, like maybe you were going to see something? Is that your one almost sighting, I should say?
I would say almost sighting, because as far as from what I heard, and I tell people this, and I know it sounds funny, but I tell them, I said, it sounded like a two-legged elephant running through the woods. And at the time, I've been going out in this area, and this is a known area for a couple of guys have been getting some weird, strange stuff in this area, and they've been out in this area and for a couple, like 3 years, and I was out there by myself. I do a lot of stuff by myself sometimes. I go out on my own, and I was testing out my GoPro camera I just got not too long ago, and unfortunately, the test kind of failed as far as the audible, because the video was great, but the audible kind of really sucked because I had it encased in the GoPro casing that they give you.
Yeah, you can't hear a thing, huh?
You can't hardly hear a thing. But I was recording, and I was looking at a pond, and that had alligators in it, of course. And I was kind of like, oh yeah, look at the alligators in here. And then all of a sudden, right behind me, there's another pond behind me, and it's a spring-fed pond, which is clear, and you can see pretty much the bottom of the pond. Well, right behind me, I hear this choom, 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 and it's gone. I mean, it's like, and I'm turning around. I'm like, holy, you know what? And I turn around, and I'm hoping I'm getting all this on the GoPro, you know, the audio, of course, the video. And I'm at first I thought this thing was coming at me. So I turn around, I'm looking in that direction, and I don't see anything because the foliage was so thick. And the sound, I'm guessing that it was probably another 40 yards from me. And I said, okay, well, something obviously is running on two legs behind me. So I go closer to the area. And, you know, that's what I tell people always do. And they look at me like I'm nuts. Why would you go closer to something like that? I said, well, you have to get the best video, audio, or whatever. You know, this is what you're here for. So you have to do that. You know, in my mind, that's what you're out here doing. So you get closer to the subject that you are researching. And I get into this area where I've heard the sound, and I don't see nothing. I mean, it's dead quiet. I'm looking around. I even broke out my binoculars, and I'm looking around this area. I'm like, okay, something's got to pop up. Something has got to move. Something's got to, you know, pop up and run even more, but nothing. And I hung out there probably a good 20 minutes just looking around in that area, and I didn't see anything. And and I'm, you know how you play it in your head. You're like, did I really hear something like
right.
that? Does this really happen? You play it back in your head, and like, no, I did. And then, of course, you know, I said, well, I got my camera, so I gotta have this on audio. Well, when I get home, I, you know, pop the chip in the computer, and I'm trying to look at this video, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to turn the sound way up, and you can barely hear this. You can hear it, but it's real faint. I'm like, oh no, this thing was, the sound was 20 times more than this, what I have on this thing. And I was so upset because I should have had brought my other camera, which is a Sony Handycam, which has awesome sound capabilities. And I said this thing would have picked it up great, but I didn't bring it. That kind of pissed me off too, because I'm like, okay, what kind of researcher are you? They don't, you know, bring your fallback stuff with you.
See, but if you would have brought that, it probably would have never have happened, because it's like it's just the universe. It's just the way it seems to work sometimes when you're out researching, doesn't it?
I think you're right, because every time I bring it, nothing really happens.
Right. That's what I found. I'm like, I'm ready, dude, and absolutely nothing happens. But when I'm like, I'm just going to go for a little walk real quick, something nutty happens, you're like, God.
Yeah, and then you question yourself, well, do they know that I have this stuff? How do they know what I have in my pack? Because I have I have my backpack with me, and, you know, I have all my, you know, survival stuff and all my gear that I need, and, you know, so. But I will tell you this: in that same general location of where this happened at, and we went out this past year. I want to say it was back in January or February of this past year, and it was me, another gentleman, a friend of on the team, and another lady on the team. We were out there, and we're just hiking around. We're just checking out the area, and this was at night. This probably about 9:30 at night, and we're hiking down this trail, and it's kind of cool. It's probably maybe in the 50s, which is nice because the mosquitoes aren't, you know, they're somewhere, but not on us. So we're hiking down this trail, and I stop abruptly. I'm like, whoa, do you feel that? And everyone stops, just three of us stop, dead in our tracks. And what we hit, you know, you're talking about 50-degree weather, okay? And what we walked into felt like what I call a hot spot. And not only that it was warm, I mean, it was significantly, probably about 10 to 20 degrees difference. And also it had a burning electrical smell to it. Now get this. We thought that was weird, of course, and we're looking around, and we pressed on. We hit 2 other areas just like that on that same trail. And I didn't notice it, but coming back, when we came back the same way, we hit those same 3 areas again. And I just happened to look up and notice the area that we were in, that there were some tree breaks. I mean, broken trees about 3 to 4 inches in diameter, broken about 6 feet off the ground in that same general area. You know, you talk about weird. I was like, okay, what does this have anything to do with Sasquatch?
Interesting. Okay, and so what's your guesses on that with those certain areas?
That is what I tell people. That is the thing that you have to put on the table of discovery. Things that makes you scratch your head and wonder about. It's one of those things you just throw it on the table and come back to because you don't have an answer to it. You're like, what is this? What does it mean? And we don't know what it means because it's weird. It happened. 3 of us are there. We witnessed it. We felt it. We smelt it. And it was just strange. And, it's just one of those things you just, you got to throw on the table and say, okay, we got to come back to this later because this was weird.
Was there any feeling of, when you're in the electrical charge area and it's warmer and it's something different, was there this sense of, we have to leave right now? Like, was there any of that you have, we've all heard that in certain aspects of sighting reports?
I didn't feel that. I don't think the other 2 people felt that on our team that was with us. It was more like, what the heck is this? We were trying to figure it out. We never had a feeling of, okay, this is weird. We got to get out of here kind of thing. I have felt that before, but I didn't have that feeling at that moment that any of that was going on. It was just a weird, like, okay, this is strange.
Right.
Write this down.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just put it in the brain bank and see what happens later. Now, of course, this is something that I jotted down. Just me being me, and I talk about a lot of weird subjects, as you know, and that's the whole paranormal aspect of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Skunk Apes. And now, paranormal, it might be a very strong word to use for what you guys ran into, but that is really interesting because I didn't know that you were going to say that, right? So, I mean, maybe not just labeling that paranormal, but maybe, do you think they have extra abilities that we are just not aware a mammal can do right now?
Well, I when I got into this back in 95 and I started doing field research, shortly after that, I thought like everybody else, hey, this is a flesh and blood thing, it poops, it eats, it does all these other things that other animals do. But as I've gotten into this and as I've heard more weird, strange things of things happening to people and people seeing these things actually happen with these, with them involved, the Sasquatch involved with these, I'm starting to think that they have some sort of abilities that we don't have or we don't know how to use.
Yeah.
Apparently they do because they're not in it. They don't have to get up at whatever time in the morning to go to work and feed kids and, this, that, and the other. They're living out in the wild. Their senses are high. So do they have special abilities? I'm thinking maybe they do. I can't say that, that I've seen that actually happen. But listening to other folks, have seen these experiences or had experiences with these Sasquatches doing this, that, and the other, and it's paranormal, which means, out of the normal of everyday life, it kind of falls into play. And that right there, I can't relate that to Sasquatch. I can relate it to, hey, that's weird. I never had this before. Of all the years I've been out in the, researching, I've never felt that ever before or smelt that in relation to a heat source and electrical burning smell all at the same time. That was just totally weird. That was off the Richter right there for me.
And you guys were out, basically in the middle of nowhere. You're not on some power grid. There's no power lines over you, anything like that, right?
Nothing like that. No. I wouldn't say we were out in the middle of nowhere. The area we were at was considered the green swamp here in Florida. But there were, within 3/4 to a mile were homes.
Okay.
So it's not really out in the middle of nowhere,
right.
But it's like I said, it's in an area that there's some activity going on in there. But can I relate what we felt that night to Sasquatch? I can't, connect the two. I can just say, hey, what we experienced that night was weird, and we just so happened to see, these trees broken over on each of those locations.
Right, and you guys were in fact out there searching for Sasquatch. So.
Oh yeah. We're out there checking out an area, and had my parabolic mic trying to pick up some audio sounds, and just basically trying to get in the middle of in the Sasquatch area to see what we can get and hear and see, and basically that's what we were doing.
No, I totally agree with you there, David. And I have to say, when you say the word paranormal, a lot of people, to them, it's a 4-letter word, right? They're like, oh my God, paranormal. But they don't really, like you said, it just means not of the norm. It maybe just means something we don't understand right now. But they automatically, we're not talking about a Bigfoot flying on UFOs. We're not taking it that far. But, right. Maybe they just can access a different part of their brains that we can't. And if we could probably maybe get closer to doing what they do. But as I've said many times, I love to think of them as the Liam Neesons of the woods. They're built for it. That's what they do. Like you said, they're heightened to their senses and their environment. And even if it's just something as simple as using X amount more of their brain to a certain extent to use in their environment, yeah, I could kind of see where they could maybe throw out some extra stuff to where it completely throws us off.
Oh yeah, well, if you think of the size of these creatures, and a lot of people have a misconception here in Florida with skunk apes and the ones out west. We've found tracks 18 inches long in Florida. So if you equate that with the height, you're looking at something about 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
And so it's nothing, to say that these things couldn't get bigger. And some folks have even mentioned that they've seen 10 to 12 foot tall Sasquatches down here, or skunk apes. Mm-hmm. But take into account their size and take into account that, and I tell people our biggest thing that we look at is people's reports. Because they're the ones that were there. They're the ones that seen it. They're the ones bringing the information to us. So we have to examine the actual report that they're bringing to us. If they're saying this thing moved faster than a ninja through the woods, well, of course, if they're comparing that to something other than a deer, of course they have to be faster than deer, because guess what? That's part of their. That's what they eat. That's their food source. So, yeah, I think they do have special abilities or better abilities than humans, because heck, man, they've been doing this a long time.
David,
on our continent.
Yeah, I was watching the show I Was Prey, and it was on in the background. I was doing other things, but this gal was talking about, I don't even know where she was. I'm going to be the worst at retelling this, but it's to just prove a little point here. It had to do with a polar bear, and for some reason she was in proximity to this damn polar bear. I don't know if it's a zoo or I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know the background, guys, but Basically, it started running at her.
Oh, gosh.
And she said there was no sound. Right? And what does that sound like? It was completely silent. Now, we know a polar bear exists, and they are flipping massive. And here is a known animal. No, special abilities. They're not trying to hide from us. They're not shy from humans. Unfortunately, we capture them and put them in zoos. But she said it was completely silent. So, when people go, oh, well, it's just so, how can that even be real that you didn't hear it come in? But it is real because even this woman here, and by the way, I think it chomped on her head by the end, and she was alive to talk about it, obviously. But yeah, she said it was completely silent. So that was my point, that, things that we know about, they're built like that. That is how they are made, so that, like you said, they can go and eat things that they need to eat.
Exactly. I actually got a inside. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he sent me a audio recording of an investigation that he did here in Florida. And I pitched it over to Jeff Meldrum, and only because Jeff Meldrum brought this up, that he thought in a similar fashion that, he thought the bottom of their feet were somewhat like elephants, and how elephants can sneak up on, in Africa, they can sneak up on, tribes, and they can be right on top of them, and they won't even hear them. Well, elephant's foot is real spongy, and so when I was listening to this guy's interviewing this lady, and she was actually telling her story of her son was out hunting, and he was trying this new gun out or something, and he was all in camouflage, and he was leaning up against a tree, and this Sasquatch came running past him. I don't know if it ever saw him or what, but he said the first thing he saw that, and then he looked down at this thing's feet to see what the heck it is. And he says as he looked at the feet, he can see as the foot hit the ground, he said he saw that the meat kind of pushed out. Mm-hmm. And he said the thing kind of just glided through the woods like you can barely hear it move. So I pitched that to Jeff Meldrum. I haven't heard back from him yet on that, but I said, hey, remember you telling us about you kind of think their feet are kind of like elephants? So I said, listen to this investigation here, this lady's story, and so I haven't heard back from him yet on that, but I figured he would, he might be right on the mark with that. Yeah, because they can run through the bush and sound like a truck coming at you, or
right if they want to,
or if they want to, or they can or they can run through there stealthily, like the forest ninjas they are.
Yeah, forest ninjas, Liam Neesons of the woods. I mean, they really are. They're bad at the bone. They're just built for it. That's all there is to it. And there might be, sorry guys, but there might be some other things that we just, but our tiny brains can't just wrap around right now. Maybe some other things that they might be capable of.
Oh yeah, most
Which
definitely.
Would be incredible to find out, right? Like how they're doing some of these things.
Exactly, and that's part of some of the questions, many of the questions we all have on these things, and we don't know everything. I mean, I've been doing this over 20 years, and I still don't know a lot of stuff that they do. I know their habits, I know their food, those sort of things. We know all the typical stuff that they do. Yeah. Over the years, you gather all that information. But now, as the rabbit hole goes deeper, you're finding stranger things that these things are doing.
Well, and unfortunately, as time goes on, the questions become more important. Questions such as why no bones, why no body yet, right? What are your thoughts on that?
I think they do bury their dead, only because they don't want other animals feeding on them. Mm-hmm. I think that they do live in family groups. They may have, you call them sentinels or relatives that guard the family. I do believe that they do that. They are there to scare us humans away because, there might be a family group over here that they absolutely don't want human activity involved with that group. Only because, hey, some people out there see something strange, they want to shoot them, and I'm sure they've been shot at down here hundreds of times. But I do think they do live in family groups. I think they protect their family like anybody else would. So yeah, I think they do bury their dead, or they do something with their dead to where, and down here in Florida and anywhere else, if you bury bones or any kind of a dead animal in marshy areas, it's going to decay. It's going to decay inside of a week, and there would be nothing left. Maybe hair, but then you got birds and everything else that makes nests out of it, which is another good avenue to look at, is birds' nests for hair.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no kidding. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I've actually never heard that before, but that's a really good point. Just knock all the nests down that you might see. If they don't have eggs, guys, just leave the eggs.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm all about keeping the animals as safe as possible. I don't like just to kill things for just, whatever else.
Not even for science. Yes.
No, yeah. If you can help it at all costs, just try to keep things safe. Because known animals, when they know they're going to pass on, and I have had this with my own animals, they don't want to come and snuggle with you and be close to you or be close to even another animal that even they've been around their whole life. They will go in a closet, they'll go behind a bed or under a bed, they want to be alone, they know they're going to die.
Right.
Like that's, I get that, and the family group thing, totally agree with that. If they're sticking together, of course, I do feel like they would want to make sure that their loved one is taken care of, and maybe they do have something as close to a burial like we would. But, and I've said this before, kind of in a tongue-in-cheek joking manner, but I'm like, why can't there just be one that during all these road crossings, and there was one on your website, wasn't there, where one did get hit by a car, by a vehicle. He cut it a little bit too close, man, with his jump across that road, and he got hit, but he didn't die, right? Like, I'm like, why can't there just be one that screws it up for the entire species?
Yeah, fortunately he was able to, run off and go back into the woods and get away. But, I've read reports of where one of them has gotten smashed by semi or what have you. And not saying that's true or not, but, the guys come by in the van and pick it up and tell the guy, well,
right.
what you hit was a bear that was deformed, and we're looking for it for several months or whatever, and he's like, yeah, okay, well, that wasn't a bear. But, I believe the men in black do play a part in everything. Anything that walks, crawls, flies, or whatever here on our planet. I think they do have an agenda to keep it out of the public's eyes. And, but there was a gentleman, that was driving a semi-truck, that we had a report with that, crossed in front of him, and he said, typical Sasquatch behavior. I mean, this thing darted out in front of him. He said it was in the moment where, you had to you thought about slamming on brakes, but the thing moved so fast he didn't have to. It darted in front of him and he was gone. And he said he was going about 55, 60 miles an hour, and it was gone that fast. And he said I asked him, I said, well, how tall do you think this thing was that was moving that fast? And he said, well, if it stood and looked at me while I was sitting in my tractor trailer and in my window, he said that window is 7 feet tall from his window to the ground. And he said it was every bit of that tall.
I love that one. I absolutely love that one. I went to your site and I was going through some of the reports, and that was one of the more recent ones, right, from last year, but that one really is striking. Didn't he say it was was this one that was reddish brown, or it was the other one, I think? This was the grayish colored one, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah, that was a grayish colored one that he saw, and he was familiar with the area because he goes there. It's almost like he has a run through that area every week, and he he actually pointed out some roads that I knew of, and he goes, "You know this road and this road?" And I said, "Yeah, I know that road." And he goes, "Yeah, man." He goes, "This is for I go down these roads all the time," and he goes, "I haven't seen anything like that before until that night." And he actually lives in Georgia, and he saw this here in Florida. So.
Yeah, I really like your follow-up because you went out there yourself, and you guys seem really thorough with your investigations. But something interesting.
Oh, we have to be. Yeah. We have to be. I mean, this research, I've been doing this over 20 years, and I've seen it. It interests me at the age of 7. So to do a shoddy job at this point is ridiculous. You have to cross the T's. You have to dot your I's, cross the T's, all that sort of stuff. And you have to decipher through all the muck and stuff or all the fake stuff. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and all you're wanting is the truth. That's all you're wanting is the truth, and you're wanting answers. And so it's a lot of work to do it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of personal time too. I don't think people realize that. A lot of time away from home and the family, and if you're not working, well, then you got to work on Sasquatch stuff, right? So if that's what you choose, then I like that you guys are doing it right. Yeah, in your report here, you say you did try to contact one of the homeowners, which, interestingly enough, there was an ostrich farm around there. So it kind of makes you wonder if the SAS was hanging around maybe to check out the ostrich farm, right?
Exactly. I actually talked to the owner there, and he said that they lost a few animals here and there, and they don't know what. I mean, he thought it was maybe a fox or something else in the area that could have been, but
fox, though, right?
A fox, yeah. There are foxes in the area, but
size difference there.
If he calls me and says, "Hey, one of my ostriches just, up and left somewhere," that's a different story.
Right.
I think, okay, well, it wasn't a fox that took it. I guarantee you that. So,
yeah. Just look up a fox and then an ostrich, folks, and you can see why we're kind of chuckling about the whole fox idea from the farmer. Yeah.
And this was also close to a river. I mean, this river goes, that river is 10 miles, I think it is. It goes through
What river is that, David?
It's the Withlacoochee River.
Okay.
And it goes through a lot of different counties, but it's 110 miles. And the Green Swamp itself is a little over 5,000 square acres.
Jeez.
Or actually more than that, actually. It's 110 square acres. There's a state park now in that area, and that's over 5,000 acres. And believe it or not, where they have the state park now used to be a cattle field that the beef people owned. And they sold it to the state, and they made a state park out of it. The state did. And interesting enough is that we were getting all kinds of stuff in that area. We were getting wood knocks. We were getting whoops, yells, whistling, all kinds of stuff in that area where they have this state park. So they're in the process of creating campsites in there now. So we're all, drooling at and waiting for that to open so we can get in there and do some real good research in that area. And also as well, there's power lines, distribution lines that run right beside it, and which is another avenue that, Sasquatch uses to maneuver themselves through different parts of the forest.
Yeah, they're nice and clear under those power lines.
Exactly.
So how long ago were all the cattle taken out of that area?
Oh gosh, that was probably, I'm guessing here, I'm just throwing it out there, I want to say 6 to 7 years ago or longer.
Oh, okay, quite a while ago then.
Right,
but they're still hanging out there then, huh?
Oh yeah, even though they sold that property off to the state park, the cattle owner still has property in and around that whole area, so it's still huge. He still has property out there with cattle on it.
Is there any reports that have come into you about, cattle missing or mutilated or anything like that?
I haven't heard anything about that because I have spoken to some of the game wardens, And of course, game wardens down here, they're kind of tight-lipped on a lot of things. And, even with the bobcat, not the bobcat, but the panthers.
Panthers, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And they'll deny that there's panthers up there, but
But
yeah,
people
why?
see them.
I see the tracks out there all the time.
You're like, not recognized, huh?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But, in this one particular area that we're talking about, I spoke to, the park ranger there in that area, and he's not in that location anymore. He transferred up to North Florida, and of course he's trying to deny this and that, and he goes, listen, he goes, the panther thing, he goes, we got to tell you that they don't exist up here, because we don't want Tom, Dick, and Harry coming out here trying to shoot them and kill them and put them on their wall or whatever they do, and he goes, but I will tell you this. He says, you guys need to go out there and camp on the primitive site next to the power lines.
Oh boy.
I said, why? He says, because there is an 800-pound owl out there.
Yeah.
And I said, an 800-pound owl. He said, it's either an 800-pound owl or something imitating an owl out there. He says,
boy.
he goes, I'm a good old boy and I'm hunted in all these, in the woods a lot since I was, 10 years old. He goes, I've heard every sound out there. He says, but that sound, he said, it made the hair stand up on the back of his neck.
You're like, yes, 800-pound owl. That's right up the alley.
So we got a lot of good areas right here, hotspot areas, and we got some other areas in the state of Florida that are under investigation. We had one not too long ago, actually from you probably know him as well, Wes from Sasquatch Chronicles. Actually, I listen to your show too, and I listen to Wes's show.
No problem there. Me and Wes are still friends. There's no problems there.
No, I listen because that's information for me.
Absolutely. Still getting great stories on that show, so I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, and I heard a story on there, and I said, Wes, I emailed him. I said, Wes, you got to give me this guy's information or give him my information, this, that, and the other. So he did, and this guy calls me, and it happened on the East Coast, actually. And this one was probably the most aggressive report that I ever heard in the state of Florida, actually. And I got with the guy. The guy was still shaken up, and this was only a month and a half after it happened. And I talked to him on the phone for about an hour. He gave me the coordinates of this place, and I said, okay, well, that's, I'm pretty familiar with that area, because it's close to a railroad tracks, and I used to work on the railroad back many years ago, and I was very familiar with that area. It's very thick wooded, and not only that, but it's north of the Cape Canaveral. So his story was very intriguing. He got charged at in a kayak, and then he flipped out of the kayak because this thing scared the heck out of him. And he got a good look at it, really good details of it. And so long story short, I called up one of the guys on our team, and I said, hey, we got to go out there and check this area out. And unfortunately, the weekend we were going to go out there, Hurricane Matthew come rolling up the coast of Florida and messed up a lot of the, what we were hoping to find as evidence out there. So we had to reschedule that, of course, to another weekend. But we did eventually get out there. And on my YouTube channel, which is called Tracking Sasquatches, you can see the video out there that we did. I did a video on our us traversing through the area and checking it out. We actually camped on an island out there, just off the coast there. And we left the island into this area where this guy had his encounter, and it's very squatchy out there. I mean, there could be a couple family of Sasquatches living out there for all I know. But that is still under investigation. That one, we're gonna keep our eyes on that area, because that was probably the most aggressive encounter that anybody has in the state of Florida that I know of as of right now.
Why do you think he was so pissed off, the Sasquatch? I mean,
I think he was messing up a hunt for the Sasquatch because there was pigs out there, and he thought for a moment that he scared these pigs up, or he did something and messed up this Sasquatch's hunt. But the whole detail on that whole story was awesome because he said this thing had peered. He got a wicked smell that almost made him puke. And then he said he saw this thing peer at him from behind a pom-pom, and he goes, "What does that? A bear doesn't do that."
Oh boy, yeah.
And he said this thing stared at him for like 30 seconds, and he said, just like lightning, this thing bolted toward him. He goes, "I never seen anything move that fast." And it came out into the water towards him. He was 20 feet from this thing. And he said, but when the thing came out into the water, he was now probably about 15 feet from this thing. And
gosh.
Yeah, this creature is standing in about 2 or 3 foot of water. Oh. He's flipped backwards in his kayak. He's in the water, and he's like holding up his oar, screaming at this thing like, "Go away, bear."
Like, what else can you do at that point, right?
Exactly. And but the poor guy, he's got PTSD, and he doesn't remember, and that's part of it. He doesn't remember even going home, how he got back to his vehicle, and he was like, all the effects of PTSD, and he just he doesn't want to be crazy. I think he's crazy. Yeah. But it did take a turn for the worst, not the worst, but the weird, I should say, later on, and kind of got involved with a friend of his that was a officer of the Fish and Wildlife and all that, but it got weird after that, and you wonder why they want to cover up such things, but who knows? No,
that's a good teaser for that episode. Do you know how long ago was that SC episode? Because I can link it so people can hear the whole episode and the details.
Yeah, that happened last year, actually, around August.
I'm going to try to track that down. I wonder if it says something like, Florida something or other. Surely it does.
I think I have a link to it on my my website as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make sure to link that in the show notes, everybody, so you can check out that SC episode. There's a certain list of things that you have in your mind as far as the perfect encounter, and that would, perfect quote unquote, but that would not be it. Something that terrifies you and you can't sleep, and you probably think about it 5-6 times a day. That's not what you want for your first encounter, first and only, probably.
Yeah, exactly. This poor guy, he knew about Bigfoot. He thought it was it's a joke, this, that, and the other, but he never in his day thought he would ever see that. And the guy was just out there. He was out there fishing, and that's all he was
doing. See, now you take and ruin one of my favorite things to do just for relaxation is fishing. If you ruin my fishing, then we've got problems.
Well, Shannon, it's easy food for him. You're catching the fish.
Yeah,
and
he's like, man, look at this burrito sitting here in the water. What? Not that we're assuming that they eat people. Don't send me emails. But if you want to, Shannon at endofthefrayradio.com. There you go. I have to throw that out there because I always get certain emails. People are a little like, hey, what the heck? So I wanted to bring up the sounds that you recorded, and I want to cut them in after we kind of mention them. But sure. You mentioned 2 different sounds. One is from December of last year, 2016, and one from 2013. So can you set us up for the older one? Can you set us up first for the 2013 sound, and then I'll play it, and then we will move on to the 2016.
Yeah, the 2013 one, and I can't remember right offhand. I know it was during the winter time, and it was cool because that's the best time to go down here in Florida. It was me and probably about 4 or 5 other people on the team. This actually got picked up on Chris and Mark's parabolic microphone that they had with them. I didn't have mine with me at the time. I at the moment. I built one later on. But this was off of his recording that he got. And what you're hearing is we were out there probably about 9:30 at night. We were walking in this trail. It was a horse trail, and it was in between two different locations of where our research is as far as names go. And we were walking toward the north, and it was about 9:30-ish, and we were trying to get some sort of activity kicking in that area. After a while of standing there and not hearing stuff, I told him, I said, "Hey, I'm going to do a yell, and we'll see what happens." So I do this yell, okay, and this sound came from the north of where we were at, and I can look at it on the map and tell you this location is near that same river that winds around 110 miles. And it came from a location up there north from where we were at, and it was very heavily thick with woods and what I call cypress hammocks, and it's real swampy. The terrain goes up and down as far as that goes. There's swamp and then there's high ground. So where this sound came from it sounded almost like, and some people say it didn't quite sound like that, but to me, it sounded like it was trying to imitate a coyote or something. And it as the sound came out, we're looking, or not trying to look at each other. It's kind of dark, and it's no moon out, and we're like real quiet. We're like, that is not a coyote. And because it was long and drawn out, and at the very end, it had a weird
just sounded messed up, right?
Yeah, it just sounded really messed up, like something was trying to imitate something.
Heard that before. You're like, that is one drunk ass coyote.
Yeah. Exactly. And but what happened is when that thing went off, then just south of us, all the other coyotes went off, and they were doing their thing, and yip, and all that. Yeah. And I was like, holy crap. But we never heard that again in that location. So it stopped. The other coyotes stopped yipping and stuff. So we sat there for probably, 15 minutes. Nothing happened. Quiet. So as we started walking north, I said, let's go walk north a little further on this trail and see what happens. Maybe we can get a little closer to whatever's making that noise. And as we were walking up there, I hear the owls in that same general area going off. And I tell this to a lot of people. I said, old hunting buddy of mine, he said, owls usually won't sound off unless they see something.
Uh-oh.
And they'll go, woo, 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 because something is in their area. Well, these owls were going off every so often as we moved north, and something was coming in their area, probably, and I'm guessing that this was probably 150 yards, 200 yards away. And you can hear these owls as we moved up, probably another 80, 90 yards. These owls would go off over in 150 yards over toward our northwest. And okay, I'm just writing this in my brain on the notepad. Okay, I hear those owls are going off, and we go another 80, 90 yards, and I hear different owls going off. So I stopped. I told the guy, say stop. I said, listen, I've been listening to these owls, and they're different owls. They're not, I don't think they're the same owls. And I think that whatever made that noise is paralleling us and walking as we're walking. And it's listening to us. It can hear us. And these owls out there are going back and forth with each other because, hey, they see something coming through their area, and they're going off. So that was pretty amazing. I mean, I was like, but it never made that sound again that whole night. But that was pretty amazing, though.
And how long does it, the audio itself that you're recording, how long does this one run?
This one is well, each sound that you're going to hear is really short. I mean, they're not very long. I mean, they're real fast. The next clip is a little bit longer because they're all combined. I combined them all together.
Okay.
And there's like 6 different things that you hear on the next clip.
Okay.
But the 2013 one, it was just the one. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's listen to that audio from 2013. All right, so if you don't mind now just setting up, how you captured the sounds now from December of 2016 and what was going on there.
Okay, on December 2nd of 2016, we were camped in a location where we go out to a lot, and there's been activity in and around in this area, especially the last clip you just heard wasn't too far from where we got these audible sounds. On this day, it was probably there's like 6 or 7 or 8 of us on this trip out. We were in a campsite, and the campsite was kind of noisy because there was other people there, not squatchers, but other people camping out there. So I told the team, I said, hey, let's go out here to the river and just see what we find. We'll walk out there. We had our headlamps on, and it was probably 9 o'clock at night, 10, somewhere around there. So as we were getting closer to this, we're walking down out of the campsite, and we're going, and it's probably a good 3/4 mile to a mile from where we were at. But on the process of getting there, I told everybody, I said, okay, let's go lights out. Turn your lamps off, let's go lights out and let's walk down this trail. And we had a little bit of a moon, so you can see the trail pretty clearly, once your eyes adjusted. And of course, they're probably thinking I'm crazy. I can't see anything in front of me, but I said, well, sit here for about 5 minutes and let your eyes adjust, and you'll be able to see fine. And of course they did. So as we walk down this trail, and it's just what we call a fire trail, is what they use to, the Forest Service uses. They cut fire trails through during the summertime in case there's, fires that they don't want crossing over to different parts of land. So this is what this was, and we were walking on it. And as we walked down it a little ways, we would turn off to our left, and there's another pathway that goes towards the river, the Withlacoochee River. As we were walking on that path, the first clip you're going to hear on this one, you'll hear a knock. And then, we say a few words. Hey, did you hear that? And that kind of sort of thing. And then the second clip, which I didn't catch until I got back home and listened to it on the computer with better sound. The second clip sounds like a yell or a laugh, like an evil laugh. I'm like, what the heck? Boy. Oh yeah. And, so as we're walking, we're still walking towards the river. Haven't got there just quite yet. And that's when we're getting a couple of these clips. The third clip, we're at close to the river, and I pick up something similar to what we heard in 2013 of something imitating a coyote, but a little bit different and clearer, by the way. Okay. And on the fourth clip, there's a deep yell and then a knock. Like wood on wood. Okay. The fifth clip is interesting because it's kind of faint, but there's some sort of gibberish going on, like something was pissed off, and you can hear it going, making that gibberish sound, and it was like, you know, and that's on the 5th clip of this, on this over here. And on the 6th clip, basically we just hear 2 branches snap, and that was probably within 70, 80 yards of us.
Oh, jeez. Now, did you guys hear the gibberish with your own ears?
We heard something. Like, with our own ears, it sounded like somebody was pissed off at somebody, like somebody was yelling at somebody. Almost.
It was just like jarbled, like you can't really hear that.
You can't really make out the words. You just hear like, oh my God, whoever that is, they're really pissed off at this person. and that's what it just kind of sounded like. But on the recorder, the parabolic mic picked it up, and that's what it sounded like. It sounds like some sort of gibberish, almost kind of like the Sierra sounds.
Right.
I don't want to go that direction because, you know, I'm not sure of that, but it kind of sounds similar to something like that.
Can I just say that I would freak out if I heard anything close to gibberish or, like you said, the Sierra sounds, you know, anywhere close to my location. It would be extremely discomforting.
In more ways than one, probably.
Yeah. I mean, no. That's, as much as I love Bigfoot and Sasquatch, I've heard, you know, a couple strange sounds, you know. No. That would freak me out.
But to me anyhow, I can only speak for myself. To me, it's exhilarating. People think I'm nuts because they always ask me, well, what would you do if you saw one on the side of the road and ran into the woods? I said, well, I'd stop the car and run in the woods with it, you know, with my camera. And they're like, you would do that? I said, well, you know, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah. You know? See, you know, I totally agree with that. I really do. I don't think
that's
at all. There's something
that's
about
that's what Roger Patterson did. I mean, if you watch Roger Patterson's film, you know, he didn't, you know, stay behind. He got closer to the subject that he was shooting on the video.
Stayed behind, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I just, there's something about the speaking and the talking that I guess because it makes them so much more than people already, you know, assume that they are, which is just big monkeys running around in the woods that makes them so mystical to me. And it's just a deep-seated kind of you guys are a lot more than maybe I thought that you were. Not that I don't think that they're awesome. I think they're freaking amazing, but that they have their own language, I think kind of freaks me out on a deeper level, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining myself well, but.
Yeah, if you think about it, everything pretty much has its own communication. Yeah. Why wouldn't these things, you know? Yeah. They have to communicate with one another. And the wood knocking and the whistles and the imitating other animals. If you look back on how, you know, the Indians did things, that's how they communicated, especially on their hunts. You know, they wouldn't yell out and say, hey, you know, so-and-so, I'm over here.
Hey,
you know,
bring the club, I got a deer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, hurry up, stupid, you know I got a deer over here. Yeah.
David, you know what I think freaks me out about their gibberish is the fact that it's very sped up, but it sounds close to English somehow. You know, I think that's like, it just, on a primal level, it just kind of freaks me out, if that's what they use.
It does, and it's kind of scary because, you know, to us, because like you're looking at this, you know, you have an idea of what these things are, and then, you know, probably the worst thing you wanted to do is something to come up behind you like that and say, "Hey, Shannon,
right?
What are you doing in my woods?
Yeah,
you're messing up my hunt." You know, but I mean, they do have a language. I mean, and it would behoove us to think that they don't. Right.
And that part's not shocking to me. I just think that to actually hear that and to realize that maybe we're not so far removed. I'm not, again, go ahead and email me. That's fine. But, you know, I don't know. I don't know what to think about them sometimes. I think that every month I flip-flop on what I think, and if that makes me a flake, then it does. But sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm more over on this side, and then on the next week I'm this side. I don't know what to think about them. But anyhow, let's, was there other, parts of that clip that you needed to explain before we roll that tape?
No, that was pretty much it. We got those sounds, and that was it for the night. I mean, it got quiet. We actually went back out there another night. When was that? It was probably back in April or May or June, maybe. No, May. And we went back out there, and of course it was dead quiet. You know,
they've already moved on, right?
They moved on or something, and they're gone. But that's how they are. They'll move on to different areas, especially if human activities in the area. They're not going to stay very long in one area. They're going to move to another area that they know that no humans are going to be at. So that's how they roll.
I can't really blame them. I'm kind of an introvert myself, which seems funny since I do a podcast and everything. But I can side with the Sasquatch on that. I don't blame them.
Right.
All right, so let's roll this tape from December 2016.
I just heard it now. Just heard something. Thought of that. They are this dog. Yeah. That's not a coyote. That sounds, whoa. That's not a coyote. That sounded funny. That's not a coyote. This is where we got that. You hear that? Yeah. What was that? Is that gibberish? That way. Over that way. Back where we came from. Where the coyotes were. That sounds like gibberish. I never heard that before. Yeah. They're pissed off or something. Holy shit. That's a big. That's a snap.
All right, Dave, so here's one of my last questions for you before we make sure we get all the information out for your Florida research team. What would be your perfect sighting scenario for a Sasquatch? So that you finally get that sighting that you wanted, what does it look like?
Oh gosh, the perfect one would be where I don't have to go out and look for them. They come to me.
Right.
You know, and that happens a lot. If you look at some of the reports, that, you know, these things are coming into people's campsites.
Yep.
And that's what we do. And areas that we go into, that's basically what we're doing. We're just out there camping, and we're you know, we got our equipment up, and we're trying to get this, that, and the other. And a lot of times we go out and hike areas at night and try to look for sign, or hopefully try to run into these things like we have with these audio clips. But the ideal one would be one that would come in and you know, not be afraid of humans. Maybe my ideal situation would be to get close to these creatures enough to earn their trust. And it's hard because they know the human element are going to shoot at them or something. It's always a negative effect for them. when humans are involved. So when they see someone out there like us, they don't know what to make of us. They don't know if we're going to shoot them or what, or, that. So I would like to, my biggest, I guess, scenario would be to have one come in and just maybe communicate a little bit with it and maybe get a good video of it. And, but basically just try to earn its trust and let it know that, we're not there to harm it. And we're just here to learn from them.
And do you think the end game would be then if you earned its trust to film it to some degree, or what would be the end game then for building the trust?
Well, the end game would be that, to maybe film it, kind of like the Jane Goodall approach kind of thing. Some people say, "Oh, you're nuts. You can't. You'll never be able to do that." Well, never say never. There's certain situations that these things have befriended humans. They actually come up and close to their homes, and they're getting fed by humans, especially on farmlands. So there are some cases out there where they are befriending humans, and they're not afraid of them after they get to know that the humans aren't out to kill them or harm them in any way. So that would be the ideal situation. But I'd have to come out there and play the slots or tables out there where you live for something like that to happen. In Vegas, it's a gamble. But could it happen? It could. Will it happen? You never know. You just have to keep plugging away at it. They're very intelligent. I think they watch people, and they see how they do things, and they take that in and they learn from it. So they do systematically. They do things systematically too. They never try to mess up. And the only thing they mess up is getting caught. Yeah. But when they're doing other things, they do it systematically, and that warrants intelligence.
David, I was in the onset. I asked what was your most striking experience, and you were telling me about how it was really close to you, and you heard it, and you took off into the area, and you were there for about 20 minutes, right? I'm wondering if it was still there and just watching, right? Like you wouldn't have any idea. It could be within 20 yards or closer, and you probably wouldn't have any idea.
Oh, no. Yeah. I didn't get the feeling I was being watched. The area was quiet. I was hoping something would just pop up, but it never did. Wherever it went to, it stopped. It was very still, didn't move. And of course, they're the king and queens of, camouflage. You can be looking dead at them and not even see them. That's how good they are. So I probably did look at them, and I just didn't recognize it or see it or what have you. But, for the span that it ran and it stopped, from what I heard it stopped, I thought it was still in the area.
Right.
And that's why I went over and was looking and checking things out. And apparently it was on the opposite side of this pond on a little island type of thing where I would have to swim across to get to it. But that's why I broke out the binoculars. But yeah, I could have been looking right at it and not even know it.
Yeah, just go watch the end of Harry and the Hendersons. You'll be like, wait, I didn't see that there.
Exactly.
I'm just saying, I know it's a movie, but it proves the point that, we don't see the forest with the trees, period.
Exactly. Yep. And, unfortunately, it's how a lot of sightings are. This disappearing act they do, they probably hide, pretty good, so you don't see them.
Talking to you really makes me miss being around the woods. It really does. I'm in the desert. I'm like, well, unless Yucca Man wants to come and shoot some craps down here, I'm kind of done for as far as seeing a Sasquatch. So, hey, if you wouldn't mind, just, make sure you throw out the hotline for Florida and any of your contact and social media pages there, David.
Yeah. You can reach me on our website, www.isrtusa.com. Also, I have a YouTube channel that I have. It's called Tracking Sasquatches. Now, I don't have a lot of videos up there because I believe in not putting a bunch of stuff up there that's not relevant. So I do put a few things up there, but you can go there and check out what we're doing from time to time. But I don't believe I'm putting a lot of videos out there of boring stuff that all you're going to see is woods. So that's one contact you can get to me on that. The other contact is for the hotline. If you have any reports anywhere, you can contact me at 863-398-2662. And that's my cell phone. And if I can't get to you right away, just leave a message and I will return your call. Give us a shout. And if anybody is serious about wanting to get into this research, I will ask you 20 questions, and you will have to pass all those 20 questions. That's just because of what we do. I mean, we're serious about this, and you have to be serious about it as well. So, give us a shout out, and we'd love to speak to you and talk to you about any kind of reports or anything really about Sasquatch. And if we do happen to get a conference here in Florida, Shannon, you're going to be invited, of course.
Oh, thank you, David. Thank you so much. Oh, man, and, Florida I love, and I hope that part of the conference is that we are going to go into the woods.
Oh, yeah, because where we're going to have the conference is going to be pretty close to a hot spot. So, yes. we will make sure of that.
Good. Yeah, so. Anytime I will be there in Florida. That's one of my favorite places. So, any help with that conference, you let me know. But yeah, guys, get a hold of David anytime, of course. Again, his cell is 863-398-2662. And do you want me to give out that Gmail address as well, David?
You sure can, yes.
Yeah, it's FL for Florida, Squatch, SQUATCH @gmail.com. Well, hey, David, thank you so much for coming on into the fray.
Hey, Shannon, I very much appreciate you having me on, and I had a wonderful time, and hopefully we'll do this again. I'll keep you posted on the stuff that's going on here in Florida.
Yeah, we have to do an update show. You and the geckos out there in Florida have a good night.
Oh, we will.
Bye-bye, David.
Bye-bye.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such